Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Cole Hannigan's boots made no sound on the polished hospital floor. 15 years in the Marines had taught him to move quietly, but today the silence felt wrong. Everything about St. Marigold's Community Hospital felt wrong. Riley lay propped against white pillows, her face pale as morning frost. At 15, she should be complaining about homework or arguing about her curfew. Instead, she'd been wasting away for months with an illness that had every doctor scratching their heads. "Dad," her voice came out scratchy. "Can you come closer?" Marla sat in the corner chair, scrolling through her phone with the kind of focus that seemed too intense for social media. She glanced up when Riley spoke, her lips pulling into what might have been a smile. "What is it, baby?" Cole moved to the bedside. His daughter's hand felt like paper when she grabbed his wrist. "I need to show you something." Riley's eyes darted toward Marla, then back to him. "Can you look at my back?" Something cold settled in Cole's stomach. "Sure." He helped Riley lean forward. Her hospital gown gaped open, and what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Deep purple bruises covered her shoulder blades like handprints. Dark marks ran down her spine, each one the width of a grown man's fingers. Near her lower ribs, a raw burn mark stood out against her skin, shaped exactly like a belt buckle. Cole's training kicked in. He kept his face blank, his movements steady. But inside, a familiar rage began to build, the same cold fury that had gotten him through 3 tours overseas. "Riley." His voice stayed level. "How long have these been here?" "Months." She wouldn't meet his eyes. "Dad, I tried to tell you, but what?" He glanced at Marla, who had stopped looking at her phone. "Is everything okay over there?" Marla's voice carried just the right note of concern. She stood up, moving toward the bed. "Riley, what are you showing your father?" Cole caught the subtle shift in his daughter's posture. She pulled back, her shoulders tensing like a dog expecting a kick. "Nothing, Mom. Just some marks from being in bed so much." The lie came too easily. Cole recognized the practice tone of someone who'd learned to deflect attention. He'd heard it from enough broken recruits to know the sound of fear wrapped in false calm. "Dad!" Riley's whisper was barely audible. "Please don't leave me alone with her." The words hit him like shrapnel. Cole reached over and pressed the call button. "What are you doing?" Marla stepped closer. "Cole, she's just confused from the medication. The doctor said, I'm getting a nurse." He kept his voice steady. "Riley needs to be examined." A young nurse with tired eyes appeared in the doorway. "Is everything all right? My daughter has injuries that weren't there yesterday." Cole moved to block Marla's view of Riley. "I need you to call security and have them contact the police." "What?" Marla's shock sounded genuine. "Cole, what are you talking about? What injuries?" The nurse moved to Riley's bedside, her expression shifting from routine concern to professional alarm as she saw the marks on the girl's back. "I'll get Dr. Morrison right away." She pressed her own call button. "Security to room 237. Police notification requested." "This is insane." Marla's voice rose. "Cole, she fell down the stairs last week. You know how clumsy she's been since she got sick. These could be from anything." Riley flinched at her mother's tone. Cole watched his wife's performance with new eyes, noting how quickly she'd found an explanation, how smoothly the concern flowed from her voice. "We'll let the doctors figure it out," he said. Deputy Langston Rigg looked like he'd stepped out of a cop show, tall, sharp-eyed, with the kind of mustache that belonged on a wanted poster. He sat across from Cole in the hospital's family conference room, a digital recorder between them on the table. "Walk me through the last few months," Rigg said. "When did your daughter first get sick?" Cole kept his hands flat on the table. "October. Started with headaches, then she couldn't keep food down. Doctor thought it was stress from school. And the progression got worse. Fatigue, weight loss, trouble concentrating. We've been to 4 different doctors. No one could find anything wrong." Rigg made notes in a small pad. "What about at home? Any changes in routine, discipline issues, conflicts?" "Riley's a good kid. Never caused trouble." Cole paused. "She's been quieter lately, spending more time in her room." "And your wife? How has she been handling Riley's illness?" The question hung in the air. Cole thought about Marla's reactions over the past months, the frustrated sighs when Riley couldn't eat dinner, the sharp comments about doctor bills, the way she'd started working late more often. She's been concerned, he said finally. Concerned. Rig repeated the word like he was tasting it. But not here when you discover the injuries. She was here, sitting in the corner. And her reaction. Cole met the deputy's eyes. She seemed surprised. Another pause. Mr. Hannigan, I've been doing this for 15 years. In my experience, parents react to discovering abuse in one of two ways. They either lose their minds with rage and grief, or they get very, very careful with their words. Which am I? You're being careful, but that makes sense. You're military, trained to stay calm under pressure. Rig leaned forward. Your wife, on the other hand, is in the hallway right now explaining to my partner how these injuries could have come from anywhere. Very detailed explanations. Very logical. Through the conference room's window, Cole could see Marla talking animatedly to another deputy. Her hands moved as she spoke, her face a picture of motherly concern. People react differently to shock, Cole said. They do. Rig nodded. But 15 years of experience also teaches you to recognize the difference between shock and damage control. Dr. Morrison knocked and entered without waiting for permission. He looked like he'd aged 10 years since morning. We've completed the examination. He sat down heavily. I need to report that we found evidence of sustained physical trauma. Multiple healed fractures in the ribs and left wrist. Contusions in various stages of healing. And traces of diphenhydramine in her blood work. What's that? Cole asked. Benadryl. In high doses, it causes drowsiness and confusion. The levels we found suggest regular administration over several weeks. The room went quiet. Cole felt something break loose inside his chest, not rage, but something colder, more calculating. Someone's been drugging my daughter. It appears so. Dr. Morrison looked at his chart. The pattern of injuries suggests systematic abuse over an extended period. The positioning and severity indicate an adult perpetrator. Deputy Rig closed his notepad. Mr. Hannigan, I need to ask directly. Do you have any reason to suspect your wife might be involved in harming your daughter? Cole thought about Riley's whispered plea, about Marla's perfect explanations, about the way his daughter had started flinching whenever her mother entered a room. I think, he said slowly, that I need to pay closer attention to what's happening in my own house. Cole found Riley's backpack in a hospital closet, tucked behind her street clothes. His hand shook as he unzipped it, though he couldn't say why. Inside, beneath textbooks and loose papers, he found her sketchbook. The first few pages showed typical teenage artwork: flowers, abstract patterns, a few attempts at portraits. But as he flipped deeper, the images changed. Page 12. A woman with long dark hair, her hand raised above a smaller figure cowering on the ground. The woman's face was carefully detailed, unmistakably Marla. Page 15. A man with broad shoulders and thick arms, red X's scratched violently across his face and chest. Cole didn't recognize him, but something about the angry marks suggested Riley knew him well. Page 23. A hospital bed with a small figure lying still. Above it, floating like a thought bubble, the words "finally quiet" in careful print. The last page contained a note in Riley's handwriting. Mom said no one would believe me. She said Dad would think I was making it up for attention. She said if I told anyone, she'd make sure I never saw him again. Cole's vision blurred. He gripped the sketchbook so hard his knuckles went white. Mr. Hannigan. He looked up to find Genevieve Bray standing in the doorway. Riley's art teacher looked like she'd been crying, her usually neat hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Jenny. He closed the sketchbook carefully. I didn't expect to see you here. I came as soon as I heard. She stepped into the room and shut the door behind her. Is it true? The injuries? Yeah, it's true. Jenny's face crumpled. I knew it. God help me. I knew something was wrong, and I didn't do enough. What do you mean? She sat down in the visitor's chair, her hands twisting in her lap. Riley's been different this year. Withdrawn. Her artwork changed, became darker, more violent. She started eating lunch in my classroom instead of with friends. Did she say anything? Not directly, but she drew things. Disturbing things. Ginny looked at the sketchbook in his hands. Is that what you found? Cole opened it to one of the pages showing Marla. Ginny's breath caught. I reported it, she said. Twice. Called child services, spoke to the school counselor. Both times they said they'd investigate. What happened? Your wife happened. Ginny's voice turned bitter. Marla came in for meetings, all charm and concern. Brought cookies for the staff, talked about Riley's stress from her illness, mentioned how creative kids sometimes express their fears through dark art. She was so convincing, so reasonable. Cole felt the cold rage spreading through his chest. They believed her. Everyone believes Marla. She's beautiful, articulate, knows exactly what to say. I look like a paranoid teacher picking on a worried mother. Ginny wiped her eyes. But Riley knew I tried. She started staying after school, working on projects she never took home. I think she was afraid to. How long has this been going on? The changes started last spring. But looking back, Ginny paused. There were signs earlier. Riley would flinch if someone touched her shoulder. She'd get anxious when the bell rang, like she didn't want to go home. I thought it was normal teenage stuff. Cole opened the sketchbook to the page with the unknown man. Do you recognize him? Ginny leaned forward, then shook her head. No, but Riley drew him several times. Always with those angry marks. She was furious at someone. I need to find out who he is. Cole. Ginny reached across and touched his arm. I know this is hell, but the police are involved now. They'll investigate properly. He looked at her kind face, at the genuine concern in her eyes. Then he thought about Marla's performance in the hallway, about how easily she'd fooled trained professionals. The police will do their job, he said, but I'm going to do mine too. The house felt different when Cole walked through the front door. Same furniture, same pictures on the walls, but the air itself seemed poisoned. He stood in the entryway, listening to the silence that had hidden so much that Marla's laptop sat open on the kitchen counter where she'd left it before rushing to the hospital. Cole had never been the type to snoop through his wife's computer, but then again, he'd never suspected her of drugging and beating their daughter. He sat down and moved the mouse. The screen came to life, showing her email inbox. Most of it looked routine work correspondence, spam, family newsletters. But one name appeared repeatedly in recent messages. tcreel99@gmail.com. Cole clicked on the first email from 3 weeks ago. Marla can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can we meet again? His jaw tightened. He opened the next message. Thursday works. Cole has a job in Springfield. Won't be back until evening. Usual place? And the messages went back months. Casual at first, then increasingly intimate. Cole read through them with clinical detachment, cataloging each betrayal like he was gathering intelligence. Then he found the folder labeled Our Problem. The first message made his blood turn to ice. She's getting suspicious. Asking too many questions about the bruises. We need to be more careful. And Marla, maybe it's time to back off for a while. Let things cool down. We can't back off now. She's seen too much. If she talks to someone who actually listens. And Marla, so what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we take care of the problem permanently. Doctor said she's getting sicker anyway. Would anyone really be surprised if she took a turn for the worse? Cole's hands began to shake. He kept reading. Marla, you're talking about our daughter. I'm talking about 15 more years of looking over our shoulders. 15 years of walking on eggshells, wondering if she'll decide to speak up. Is that what you want? And Marla, no. God help me, no. But how? Leave that to me. I've been researching her medications. A few adjustments to the dosages, maybe some additional supplements. And the front door opened. Cole closed the laptop and turned around as Marla walked into the kitchen. How is she? Marla asked. She looked genuinely worried, her makeup smeared from crying. She's stable. Cole watched his wife's face. Doctor wants to keep her for observation. That's probably best. Marla set her purse on the counter, inches from the laptop. I can't believe someone would hurt her like that. Who could do such a thing? The performance was flawless. If Cole hadn't just read her emails, he might have believed the pain in her voice. Marla, he kept his tone neutral. I need to ask you something. Of course. The bruises on Riley's back. Some of them are old. Weeks, maybe months. He paused. You've been home with her more than anyone. Did you ever see anything? Notice any changes in her behavior. Marla's eyes filled with tears. I've been so worried about her illness. I guess I missed the signs. She's been so withdrawn lately, spending all that time in her room. I thought it was just teenage moodiness. Right. Cole nodded. Teenage moodiness. Cole, what are you thinking? Do you suspect someone specific? He studied her face, the careful concern, the way she leaned forward slightly, as if hanging on his every word. I suspect, he said slowly, that whoever did this is someone Riley knows well. Someone she trusted. Something flickered in Marla's expression. Just for a second, her mask slipped, and he saw a calculation behind her eyes. Well, she said, recovering quickly, I guess we'll have to trust the police to figure it out. Cole stood up. Yeah, I guess we will. He walked toward the hallway, then stopped and looked back. I'm going to stay at the hospital tonight. Keep Riley company. That's sweet of you. Marla's smile looked genuine. I'll probably turn in early. This whole day has been exhausting. I bet it has. Cole met her eyes. Get some rest, Marla. You're going to need it. The Greaves house sat directly across the street, its front porch offering a perfect view of the Hannigan driveway. Cole knocked on the door at 8 in the morning, knowing Lenora would be up with her coffee and her gossip. She answered wearing a floral housecoat and suspicious expression. Cole Hannigan. Heard about the trouble at your place. News travels fast. Ambulance, police cars, hospital visits. Hard to miss. Lenora stepped back to let him in. How's Riley? She's going to be okay. Cole followed her into a living room cluttered with ceramic cats and family photos. But I need your help. My help. Lenora settled into her recliner. With what? You've got security cameras on your front porch. I've seen them. Damn right I do. Too many package thieves in this neighborhood. She paused. You want to look at my footage? Specifically, I want to see who's been coming and going from my house when I wasn't there. Lenora's eyes sharpened. You think someone in your own house hurt that girl? I think someone's been lying to me for a long time. She was quiet for a moment, studying his face. Then she nodded toward a computer desk in the corner. System saves everything for 60 days. Help yourself. Cole spent the next hour scrolling through timestamps and video clips. Lenora provided running commentary and endless cups of coffee while he worked. Most of the footage was routine Marla leaving for work, Riley walking to the bus stop delivery trucks. But several clips made him pause. October 15th, 10:30 p.m., a pickup truck in the driveway. A large man getting out, walking to the front door. The timestamp showed Cole had been in Kansas City on a job. October 18th, 11:45 p.m., the same truck. This time, Cole could see the man more clearly: broad shoulders, thick arms, the build of someone who spent time in a gym. November 3rd, 2:17 a.m., both Marla and the unknown man dragging something from the house to the garage. Something roughly the size of a teenage girl. Jesus. Lenora leaned over his shoulder. Is that Riley they're carrying? Cole's hands clenched into fists. Can you burn this to a disc? Already doing it. Lenora's face had gone pale. Cole, you need to take this to the police right now. I will. He stood up. But first, I need to make sure they can't destroy any more evidence. 20 minutes later, Cole stood in his garage, looking at the concrete floor with new eyes. In the corner, he could see faint stains that might have been oil, or might have been something else that he called Deputy Rig. I need you to come to my house, Cole said when the deputy answered. I have security footage you need to see. What kind of footage? The kind that shows my wife and an unknown male dragging my unconscious daughter into this garage 3 weeks ago. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, don't touch anything. I'm on my way. While he waited, Cole walked through his house room by room. In the basement, he found what he was looking for: a storage room that connected to the garage through a side door. The space was roughly 10 by 12 feet, with concrete walls and no windows. Perfect for what he had in mind, that he spent the next hour soundproofing the room with insulation and drywall. His contractor skills came in handy as he worked, measuring and cutting with precise movements. By the time Deputy Rig arrived, the room was ready. Not for Riley. For justice. The Broken Wheel Tavern sat on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where questions weren't asked and conversations weren't overheard. Cole found Avery Schultz in a corner booth, nursing a beer and reading case files. 15 years, Avery said as Cole sat down. 15 years since you saved my ass in Fallujah, and now you call me. I need your help. Avery closed his files and looked at his old friend. The years had been kind to the trauma therapist. He traded his combat boots for sensible shoes and his rifle for a psychology degree. But his eyes still held the sharp awareness of a soldier. I heard about Riley. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Help me understand. Cole leaned forward. The people who did this to her, how do their minds work? You mean abusers? Avery signaled the waitress for another round. What specifically do you want to know? How to break them? Avery was quiet for a long moment. Cole, I know what you're thinking. But the system failed my daughter twice. Child Services bought my wife's act. The police are moving too slow. By the time they build a case, evidence will be destroyed and stories will be rehearsed. So what's your plan? Cole told him about the emails, the security footage, the unknown man who'd helped Marla abuse Riley. As he spoke, Avery's expression grew darker. Jesus Christ, Avery muttered. They were planning to kill her. They were planning to get away with it. Cole's voice stayed level. I'm going to make sure they don't. And you want me to help you what? Exactly? Torture them. I want you to help me understand their psychology, their fears, their weaknesses, the pressure points that make them crack. Avery stared at his beer. You're talking about psychological warfare. I'm talking about justice. There's a difference between justice and revenge, Cole. Is there? Cole's eyes were cold. My daughter spent months being tortured by the two people who were supposed to love her most. They drug her, beat her, and planned her murder. Now she's in a hospital bed, afraid to close her eyes because she might not wake up. Avery sighed. What do you need to know? Everything. They talked for 3 hours. Avery explained the mindset of abusers, how they justified their actions, how they compartmentalized their guilt, how they maintained their public personas while committing private horrors. The key, Avery said, is that abusers are fundamentally cowards. They prey on people who can't fight back, but they live in constant fear of exposure. They're paranoid, always looking over their shoulders. How do I use that? You make them more paranoid. You isolate them from their support systems. You turn them against each other. Avery paused. But Cole, once you start down this path, there's no going back. I know. Is that what Riley would want? Cole thought about his daughter's drawings, about the fear in her eyes when she looked at her mother. Riley wants to feel safe. She wants to know that the people who hurt her can never hurt her again. And you think the legal system won't give her that? I think the legal system will give my wife a good lawyer and a plea bargain. I think it will give her accomplice a chance to claim he was manipulated by a seductive woman. I think it will give both of them opportunities to walk free while my daughter spends the rest of her life looking over her shoulder. Avery finished his beer. What do you need from me? I need you to help me identify the man in the security footage. Then I need you to help me tear their lives apart piece by piece. And if I say no, Cole met his eyes. Then I do it alone. The Ironworks gym sat in a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town. Cole pushed through the front doors and found himself surrounded by the sounds of clanking weights and grunting effort. Behind the front desk, a man with thick arms and a receding hairline looked up from a clipboard. Cole recognized him immediately from the security footage. Help you with something? The man asked. Looking for Tanner Creel. That's me. Tanner's smile was friendly, but his eyes were careful. You interested in a membership? Actually, I'm interested in talking. Cole pulled out his phone and showed Tanner a photo from the security footage. About this. The color drained from Tanner's face. He looked around the gym, then back at Cole. I think you've got the wrong guy. I don't think I do. Cole put his phone away. But we can discuss it here, or we can discuss it somewhere more private. Tanner's jaw worked like he was chewing something tough. Let me get someone to cover the desk. They ended up in Tanner's office, a cramped space that smelled like protein powder and stale sweat. Tanner closed the door and turned around with his hands raised. Look, I don't know what you think you saw. I saw you dragging my unconscious daughter into my garage at 2 in the morning. Cole's voice was calm. I saw you conspiring with my wife to murder a 15-year-old girl. Murder? Tanner's voice cracked. Nobody said anything about murder. Then what would you call systematic poisoning and abuse? Tanner sat down heavily in his desk chair. She said Riley was making trouble. threatening to tell lies about your marriage. Marla was scared you'd believe the kid over her, so you decided to help her keep Riley quiet. It was supposed to be temporary. Tanner's hands shook as he wiped his face. Just until the girl got older, more mature. Marla said teenagers go through phases. Cole stared at him. You beat a sick child because my wife told you she was going through a phase. I never touched her. The words came out too fast. That was all, Marla. I was there. You were there while my wife tortured our daughter. Look, I know how it sounds, but how it sounds is like conspiracy to commit murder. Cole leaned forward. Because that's what you were planning, wasn't it? To kill Riley and make it look like her illness finally got the better of her. Tanner's face crumpled. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. Marla said it would be quick, painless, like going to sleep. The admission hung in the air between them. Cole felt something settle in his chest, not satisfaction, but the cold certainty of a job that needed finishing. Here's what's going to happen, Cole said. You're going to tell me everything. Every detail of what you did to my daughter, every plan you made with my wife, every lie you told to cover it up. And if I don't, Cole pulled out his phone again. This time, he showed Tanner a different photo, one of Riley's bruised back. Then I send this to your wife, along with the security footage and copies of all the emails between you and Marla. I also send it to every member of this gym, along with an explanation of what you do to children in your spare time. Tanner went white. You can't do that. I can do whatever I want. The question is whether you're going to make this easy or hard. For the next hour, Tanner talked. He told Cole about the affair that had started 8 months ago, about Marla's complaints that Riley was becoming suspicious and threatening their relationship. He described the first time Marla had asked him to help discipline her daughter and how quickly the discipline had escalated into outright abuse. She said Riley was manipulative, Tanner said. Said the kid was trying to break up your marriage out of jealousy. Made it sound like we were protecting your family by drugging and beating a 15-year-old. Marla said it was the only way to make her behave. Said traditional punishment didn't work on Riley because she was too stubborn. Cole listened to it all with the detached focus of an interrogator. When Tanner finished, he stood up. One more thing, Cole said. I want the names and addresses of everyone Marla might run to if she gets spooked. Friends, family, anyone who might help her disappear. Why would she need to disappear? Cole smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Because by tomorrow morning, both of your lives are going to fall apart. He left Tanner sitting in his office, staring at the walls like a man watching his world collapse. The first call Cole made was to Tanner's wife. He didn't identify himself, just sent her the security footage and a brief explanation of what it showed. Then he called the gym's corporate headquarters and sent them the same information, along with Tanner's confession. By evening, Tanner Creel's life was over. His wife had filed for divorce. The gym had fired him, and half the town was talking about the child abuser who'd been hiding in plain sight. Cole felt no satisfaction in the destruction. It was simply a necessary step in a larger plan that Marla's turn would come next. The basement smelled like sawdust and primer. Cole had spent the last week perfecting his soundproof room, adding layers of insulation and testing the acoustics with loud music. The neighbors never complained, which meant the space was properly isolated. That Tanner's truck pulled into the driveway at exactly 8 p.m. Cole watched from the window as the bigger man climbed out, his movements nervous and jerky. 3 days of social destruction had left their mark. Tanner looked like he hadn't slept or shaved since his life imploded. The doorbell rang. Cole opened it to find Tanner standing on his porch, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. You said you had a deal from me, Tanner said. His voice was rough with exhaustion. I do. Cole stepped back to let him in. But not here. Too many ears. He led Tanner through the house and down into the basement. The soundproof room was hidden behind a false wall that Cole had built himself, accessible through what looked like a storage closet. What is this place? Tanner asked as they stepped inside. Cole closed the door behind them and turned the deadbolt. The sound echoed in the confined space. The room was sparse but functional. A single chair sat in the center, surrounded by concrete walls. A table against one wall held Riley's sketchbook, open to the page showing Tanner's face crossed out with angry red marks. This is where we're going to have our final conversation, Cole said. Tanner's eyes darted to the locked door, then back to Cole. What kind of deal requires a locked room? The kind where I need your complete attention. Cole gestured to the chair. Sit down. I don't think so. Tanner took a step toward the door. I think I'm going to leave. Cole didn't move to stop him. He simply pulled out his phone and pressed play on a voice recording. Marla's voice filled the room, slurred with alcohol and raw with emotion. I did it, okay? I beat that little bitch because she wouldn't shut up about us. I gave her those pills to keep her quiet, and when that didn't work, I used my hands. And you know what? I'm not sorry. She had it coming. Tanner's face went gray. Where did you get that? Marla left it on your voicemail last night. She was drunk, scared, probably figured you'd been arrested. Cole pocketed the phone. Lucky for me, she decided to confess. That doesn't prove anything about me, doesn't it? Cole moved to the table and picked up a manila folder. Because I've got your confession too. Every word you said in your office, recorded on this phone. He showed Tanner the device, its red recording light still blinking. You can't use that. I didn't consent to being recorded. I don't need your consent. I need your cooperation. Cole opened the folder and spread out printed photo security camera stills showing Tanner and Marla dragging Riley's unconscious body. These go to the police in 12 hours. Unless you help me with something first. Tanner sank into the chair, his shoulders slumping. What do you want? I want you to call Marla. Tell her you're ready to run, that you've got money and a plan to get out of state. Tell her to meet you at the old mill outside town. Why? Because when she shows up, the police will be waiting, along with a local podcaster who's very interested in this story. And if I don't make the call, Cole's expression didn't change. Then your confession and Marla's voicemail get released to the media. Your ex-wife gets copies. Your kids get copies. Everyone you've ever known gets to hear exactly what you did to a 15-year-old girl. Tanner stared at the photos spread across the table. In one, he could see himself clearly, his face, his truck, his hands on Riley's unconscious form. She's really just a kid, he said quietly. Yes, I never wanted to hurt a kid. Cole pulled out a second folder and opened it to reveal medical photos of Riley's injuries. But you did hurt her. You helped my wife torture our daughter for months. Tanner flinched away from the images. Marla said she was older than she looked. Said she was mature for her age. Riley is 15 years old. She weighs 90 pounds, soaking wet. She likes to draw pictures of flowers and keep journals about her day. Cole's voice stayed level. And you helped drug her, beat her, and plan her murder. I know. Tears started running down Tanner's face. God help me, I know what we did. Cole handed him a phone. Make the call. Jenny Bray's podcast studio was really just her spare bedroom, equipped with basic recording equipment and a computer. But Midwestern Mysteries had developed a loyal following over the past 2 years, and tonight's episode was going to be special. This is a developing story, Jenny said into her microphone. Just hours ago, I received evidence of what may be one of the most disturbing child abuse cases our community has ever seen. She looked at Cole, who sat across from her wearing headphones and a grim expression. They'd spent the afternoon preparing, reviewing evidence, and coordinating with Deputy Rigg. My guest tonight is Cole Hannigan, a local contractor and Marine veteran whose 15-year-old daughter Riley was recently hospitalized with suspicious injuries. Cole leaned toward his microphone. 3 days ago, I discovered that my daughter had been systematically abused for months. What I didn't know was that the abuse was being carried out by people she trusted. Can you tell our listeners what you found? Cole's voice was steady as he described the hospital visit, the sketchbook, the security footage. He played excerpts from Marla's drunken confession and Tanner's recorded admission of guilt. The most disturbing part, Cole said, is that this wasn't just abuse. It was attempted murder. They were planning to kill my daughter and make it look like her illness had taken a turn for the worse. Jenny had prepared for this moment, but hearing the evidence laid out so clearly still made her stomach turn. What's being done to ensure justice for Riley? As we speak, both suspects are being arrested by the sheriff's department. But this case highlights something important: how abusers can hide in plain sight, how they can manipulate systems designed to protect children. The podcast went live at 10 p.m. By midnight, it had been downloaded 3,000 times. By morning, it was trending on social media. Cole's phone rang, at 6 a.m. Deputy Riggs' voice was tight with exhaustion. "We got them both," Riggs said. "Marla showed up at the mill, just like your friend said she would. Tanner was already in custody, turned himself in about an hour after your podcast aired. What are the charges? Child abuse, conspiracy, attempted murder, insurance fraud." Riggs paused. "That last one's new. We found some interesting documents in Marla's safe." The safe sat in Marla's walk-in closet, hidden behind a row of winter coats. It took the locksmith 20 minutes to crack it open, revealing stacks of documents and a small jewelry box. Deputy Riggs spread the papers across Marla's kitchen table while Cole watched. Insurance policies, bank statements, and correspondence with various companies created a paper trail that told its own story. "Life insurance policy on Riley," Riggs said, holding up a document. $500,000. Cole felt his blood turn cold. "I never signed that. Your signature's on it. But look at the date filed 3 months ago, right around the time Riley started getting sicker." Riggs pulled out more documents. "The policy has specific terms. Full payout only if Riley dies within 1 year of diagnosis. After that, it drops to $50,000. They had a deadline. Gets worse. Your wife also applied for disability benefits on Riley's behalf, claiming severe mental illness and behavioral problems. She was setting up a paper trail to show Riley was unstable." Cole stared at the documents spread across the table. How long had they been planning this? Based on these dates? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. Riggs held up a bank statement. Marla also opened a joint account with Tanner Creel. They've been moving money into it steadily. Preparation for running. That's what it looks like. They were going to kill Riley, collect the insurance money, and disappear together. Riggs shook his head. "This wasn't just abuse, Cole. This was premeditated murder for financial gain." Cole picked up the insurance policy and studied his forged signature. The handwriting was good. Marla had clearly practiced. "There's something else," Riggs said. He opened the jewelry box to reveal a small vial of clear liquid. "We'll need to test this, but I'm betting it's concentrated insulin or something similar. One injection, and Riley's death would have looked like a medical emergency." The pieces fell into place in Cole's mind. The months of illness that no doctor could diagnose. The gradual weakening, the weight loss, the confusion. Marla had been slowly poisoning their daughter, creating symptoms that would make her eventual death seem natural. "When can I see her?" Cole asked. "Marla's being booked now. She'll be arraigned tomorrow morning." Riggs gathered up the documents. "But Cole, you should know she's not talking. Lawyered up the minute we read her rights. What about Tanner? Singing like a canary. Gave us everything, dates, methods, even locations where they disposed of evidence. He's trying to cut a deal." Cole stood up and walked to the window. Across the street, he could see Lenora Greaves peeking through her curtains, probably wondering about all the police cars. "Will it stick?" he asked. "The charges, with the evidence we have, the recordings, the security footage, the insurance fraud, Tanner's confession." Riggs nodded. "This is as solid a case as I've ever worked. Your wife is going away for a very long time." The courthouse was packed for Marla Hannigan's sentencing hearing. Cole sat in the front row, wearing his best suit and the stone expression he'd perfected during 3 tours of duty. Marla sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, her once perfect hair hanging limp around her shoulders. 3 months in county jail had stripped away her polish, revealing the cold calculation that had always lurked beneath. Her lawyer, a young public defender who looked overwhelmed, had tried everything: claims of mental illness, allegations of domestic abuse, even an attempt to blame everything on Tanner's manipulation. None of it had worked. Judge Patricia Hawkins was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd seen every excuse in the book. She looked over her glasses at the defendant with visible distaste. "Mrs. Hannigan, you have been found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, child abuse, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. Before I pronounce sentence, do you have anything to say?" Marla stood slowly. For a moment, Cole thought she might finally show remorse, might acknowledge what she'd done to Riley. Instead, she turned and looked directly at him. "I gave you 15 years of marriage," she said. Her voice was steady, matter of fact. "I kept your house, raised your daughter, played the perfect wife. And for what? So you could choose her over me at the first sign of trouble. The courtroom was silent. Cole met her gaze without flinching. She was always going to come between us, Marla continued. Always going to be more important to you than I was. I just decided to solve the problem before it got worse. Mrs. Hannigan, Judge Hawkins said sharply, I would advise you to stop talking. But Marla wasn't finished. You want to know if I'm sorry? I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry I trusted Tanner to keep his mouth shut. But I'm not sorry for protecting what was mine. Cole stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate. Every eye in the courtroom turned to him. She was my daughter before she was your problem, he said. His voice carried clearly in the silent room. And she'll be my daughter long after you're forgotten. Judge Hawkins banged her gavel. Mr. Hannigan, please sit down. Cole remained standing. Your Honor, may I address the court? This is highly irregular. Please. After a moment, the judge nodded. You may speak. Cole turned to face the packed courtroom. Riley sat in the second row beside his sister June, wearing a yellow dress and a nervous smile. She'd gained back most of the weight she'd lost, and her color was better, but she still had nightmares. Marla Hannigan spent months torturing my daughter, Cole said. She drugged her, beat her, and planned to murder her for insurance money. She did this while pretending to be a loving mother, while fooling teachers and doctors and social workers. He paused, his eyes finding Marla's face. But the worst thing she did was make Riley doubt that anyone would believe her. She made a 15-year-old girl think she was alone in the world, that no one would fight for her. Cole's voice hardened. She was wrong. I will always fight for my daughter. I will always believe her. And I will never, ever forgive the people who hurt her. He sat down. The courtroom remained silent for a long moment. Judge Hawkins cleared her throat. Mrs. Hannigan, based on the severity of your crimes and your complete lack of remorse, I sentence you to 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Marla showed no reaction as the bailiff moved to escort her out. But as she passed Cole's row, she stopped and leaned down. You'll never be rid of me, she whispered. Every time you look at her, you'll remember what I did. Every time she flinches or cries or has a nightmare, you'll think of me. Cole turned to face her fully. No, he said quietly. Every time I look at Riley, I'll remember that she survived you. And every time she smiles or laughs or draws a picture, I'll know that you failed. Marla straightened, her face twisting with rage. The bailiff took her arm and led her toward the door. What about Tanner Creel? Someone called out. Judge Hawkins consulted her notes. Mr. Creel accepted a plea agreement in exchange for his testimony. 20 years, eligible for parole in 12. Cole nodded. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The lakeside house sat on 2 acres of wooded land, far enough from town to offer privacy, but close enough for Riley to see her friends. Cole had spent 4 months renovating it from the ground up, installing new windows, refinishing the floors, and adding a studio where Riley could work on her art. The steel sculpture stood in the front yard, 8 feet tall and gleaming in the afternoon sun. Riley had designed it herself, an abstract representation of growth and strength, with flowing lines that suggested both roots and wings. It looks good, she said, standing beside Cole on the front porch. At 16, she was taller, healthier, with color in her cheeks and confidence in her voice. You look good, Cole replied. Happy. I am happy. She leaned against the porch railing. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it? What you did to Mom and Tanner? Cole considered the question. In the months since the trial, he'd had plenty of time to think about his actions. The recordings, the manipulation, the systematic destruction of 2 lives. I regret that it was necessary, he said finally. But I don't regret protecting you. Riley nodded. Good. Because I'm not sorry they're gone. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the lake. A great blue heron stood motionless in the shallows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I've been thinking about Mom, Riley said, about what she said in court. What about it? She said I'd always come between you two, that I was the problem. Riley's voice was steady, matter of fact. But that's not true, is it? Cole turned to look at his daughter. What do you think? I think she was the problem. I think she was broken inside, And instead of getting help, she decided to break everyone around her. Riley met his eyes. "But we're not broken. Are we, Dad?" "No," Cole said. "We're not broken." As if responding to some invisible signal, the heron struck. Its beak speared through the water with lethal precision, emerging with a writhing fish. The bird swallowed its prey and resumed its patient vigil, as if nothing had happened. Riley laughed a sound that still surprised Cole with its genuine joy. "He makes it look so easy." "Practice," Cole said, "and patience, and knowing exactly when to strike." Cole smiled. His daughter was learning the right lessons. They walked back into the house together, leaving the sculpture to stand guard in the fading light. Inside, the walls were covered with Riley's new artwork, bright, hopeful images that showed no trace of the darkness she'd survived. She was safe now. They both were, and Cole would make sure it stayed that way. Forever.